Just started the recording too.
Thank you. Looks like we've got a few people waiting.
Yep, I just did an admit all, so they should all be coming on.
Yay, thank you.
Hello, everyone. We're just giving a few more minutes for everybody to log on. And Holly, whenever you're ready, you just let me know, okay?
All right, I'm going to give it about one more minute and then get started.
Holly, you're good for your screen too?
Yes, I am. So I'm going to go
Okay.
ahead and just share the screen to get us started.
All right. I just want to take a minute. My name is Tracy. I'm from the Orange County Chamber of Commerce, the events coordinator. Thank you for being at our DEAI Lunch and Learn. Today, we have Holly Moisinko, the Human Resources and Communications Outreach with Kitchen Design Center. She's going to be our moderator today. And I want to thank all the work that the committee has done to put this together. So Holly, I'm going to turn it over to you.
Thank you so much, Tracy. So our next Lunch and Learn is going to be coming up in October, and then we're working on our schedule for the spring. But as part of the Diversity, Equity, Accessibility, and Inclusion Committee, one of the topics we wanted to talk about was multi-generational workplaces and the benefits of them. So in some industries, it's incredibly common to have multi-generational people working side by side. Potentially, you could have 4 to 5 different generations working in the same place. But in some industries, it's just not as easily accepted. There's a lot of unique challenges and strengths that come from having a diverse workforce, especially when it comes to age, as well as other different characteristics. Each generation has their own unique perspectives that they're bringing into each workplace, and it's influenced by many factors: where they grew up, the time period they were in, et cetera, et cetera. And something that I found very interesting was the fastest growing group among the workforce is those ages 55 to 65. And the US Bureau of Labor Statistics, said that by 2031, at least a quarter of the workers are going to be age 55 and above. So we're seeing so many people later in life still staying in the workforce, or in some cases, potentially entering it. So Ken Mitchell refers to this as productive aging and encourages more people to hire all sorts of age groups. We find that people are living longer than ever before. We have access to better healthcare and screening tools. And more people are working, sometimes due to choice. They really, really enjoy it. And other times it's a little bit more of a necessity. So without further ado, I'd like to introduce the chair of our committee. He's also the founder and CTO of Humanity Focused Solutions, Mr. Earl Miller.
Thank you, Holly. Good afternoon, everyone. My name is Earl Miller. I haven't changed it. And I have the privilege of sharing, and today and chairing our DEAI committee. This particular topic is close to my heart, and I'll have an opportunity to talk more about that as we continue. I'm currently a retired college administrator, which gives me a vast background of experiences with multi-generational work, not only in serving our students and their families, but also in terms of colleagues. I had the oversight of a department of about 120 to 140 employees, ranging in age from late teens to their 70s. So again, I'll be able to reference that experience, but certainly glad to be here and glad that you could join us.
So a little bit more about this whole topic, but I found a quote from an HR specialist, and rather than considering the multi-generational workplace as a liability, which we know many people do, managers would be better off looking at it as an opportunity for people from different generations to learn from one another. And a little bit about our panelists today. First, we've got Earl Miller, who already introduced himself. Next, we have Emma Fuentes, and she's the Chief of Staff for Senator James Skoufis. I thought it'd be great to have Emma on here because she's in charge of so many different age groups. There's a lot of volunteers for Skoufis, and she has to oversee all of those things. And Emma, can you just tell us in a sentence or two a little bit about your work?
Absolutely. It's nice to be with you all. Thank you, Tracy. Thank you, Holly. And Earl, it's nice to see you too. We've interacted in my capacity with the Senator's office a few times, so it's nice to see you. So I manage a team primarily of 14. In addition to that, we have not necessarily a volunteer workforce on the government side, but we do have a really substantial intern program. And so that may be high schoolers, that may be college students, post-college. And so being able to both meet those folks where they are, maybe they need a ride to work, or maybe they, we can't ask them to go door to door for us because they have after school programs. Recognizing that we can meet those folks where they are while also managing the staff of 14 who can range in age from, fresh out of college to mid 70s. So that's a little bit about our team, and happy to get into more of that.
All right. And last but not least, we have James Bruin. He's the president and principal designer at Hudson Valley Kitchen Design Center. I know that in James's past, he's worked in a warehouse with all different ages, and he took on ownership of a business where he's got employees that are older as well as younger. And James, would you tell us a little bit about yourself?
Well, thank you for having me here today. I really appreciate it. And like Holly said, I am the owner and principal designer at Hudson Valley Kitchen Design Center here. And one of the things that we do is really try to expand across all multi-generations as well as multiple physical abilities. My background started in the warehouse division. I actually did 10 years as a Teamster, working alongside various different people. And that put me through college to bring me to study architecture. And from there, I went into the kitchen design field and worked my way up. So very varied background and life experiences, so to speak.
All right. So just something to keep in mind about the different age groups in more detail if you want to read through it. These are basically who we're talking about. You've got your silent generation, which are still working, our baby boomers, which are usually right now about 60 to 78 years old, Generation X, 43 to 59, millennials or Generation Y, they are 28 to 43, and then Generation Z, they're now ages 12 to 27. So just in general, our different age groups that we're talking about. And some quick benefits to multi-generational workplaces, just from research, quick lit review. You're going to have multiple perspectives. You're going to have more problem-solving abilities, the opportunity for learning and mentoring one another, and not necessarily the older one mentoring the younger. It can go all different ways. Knowledge transfer and retention. We also know that in general, the more diverse your workforce, the more money businesses are making. they tend to retain their employees a lot longer. Their employees are more loyal, they're happier, and also by having different generations, unique relationships. Of course, there's always going to be some challenges. So there could be communication issues, which would happen with just about any different environment, as well as negative stereotypes and different employee expectations. So with that in mind, I'd like to ask our panelists, do you think that age plays into experience? So let's start with Earl.
As a baby boomer, certainly. But, you know, we usually think we equate experience with longevity. But that isn't necessarily the case. And I just want to say that I've benefited over the years from the experiences of younger colleagues and individuals that I engaged as human beings and their unique perspectives. I'll probably say this again because I truly believe that we are sum total of our life experiences. So with that said, because of our journeys and because of the knowledge that we've been able to acquire because of those unique journeys, then that makes us all a resource. So in that regard, yes, experience is very important and very valuable to be recognized as something to be drawn upon and as a resource available through others.
All right. And as somebody that's led employees in various capacities, whether in college admissions, et cetera, what are some of the benefits of having employees from different generations?
Relevance comes to mind immediately. I had an experience, along with being an administrator sort of in the office, I also served as a NCAA Division II golf coach. And I was handed over a program that was annually the Best Sportsmanship Award winners, which meant we later referred to it as the Best Losers Award. And in a relatively short period of time, we were able to turn the program around so that in the last 4 years of my 6 years with the program, we were involved in postseason play as individuals and as a team. Now, that was a painful journey because of where we started. I was asked to coach because of my love and my experience with golf. And I had, being a lifelong athlete, had my idea of what a coach looked like and the role of a coach. It was a perspective that wasn't relevant to my players. So before the end of that first year, we were at each other's throats. I was not coming back as a coach, and many of the guys had already looked into other colleges to transfer out in the spring. But between the spring season and the fall season, I said to myself, something has to change. I'm going to start with the man in the mirror. And so I went back to school and I studied the reality of generational differences. And that was my introduction to this whole idea of multi-generational engagement. So all that to say, I changed the way I coached. It changed my relationship with my players. It afforded them the opportunity to contribute not only to the team, but to more engaged lives of one another. And we became winners. And I've also seen that in the more formal workplace as well, as I adopted that perspective based on the experience.
Thank you. And Emma, same questions for you. Does age play into experience? And what are the benefits of having employees or volunteers from different generations?
Yeah, I mean, as I was preparing for this call, I was thinking about, a time in my own career. Prior to getting into state government, I was in the nonprofit world, arts nonprofit world, for about 10 years. And I remember having an experience as a mid-20s brand new communications director for a nonprofit. I was managing, like a ticket sales budget of $2 million or something like that. And I remember getting into that role and having to work side by side with a colleague who was probably 20 years older than me. And we were sort of on the same rung of the ladder. And I remember in that moment, finding a lot of frustration in how much comfort I had in technology that she did not. And I remember going kind of head to head with her, multiple rounds a day. Why is she not getting this? Why is she not picking up on this? And it was incredibly frustrating as a mid-20s, sort of spunky, like, I'm going to show these people, I'm going to nail this budget for the Performing Arts Center that I was working with. But as she and I got to work together, and now we're good friends, we're good colleagues, as we've gone on in our lives. But within a couple of months, I realized she has this other entire skill set about relationships, about relationship building, about really giving attention to those relationships, intentional attention to those relationships that I just didn't have, given my experience. And, I'm not saying that all young people don't have the ability to develop those relationships, but I didn't at the time. And so I found, within a couple of months, realizing that that really matters. And I need to pay attention to the skills that she does bring to this team, which I don't currently. So I'll just leave that anecdote there. I would say that, I think for our business, we're not, you talked about the ability for a business to potentially make more money with different generations in the workplace. As a government office, we don't necessarily have that ability to make more money. But I would say that we have a couple of different currencies. One is we can pass more legislation. We can be a super, super productive legislative office. And two, we can serve more and more constituents and do more work on behalf of our constituents. Those are kind of the two currencies that I always keep in mind in terms of a government official. And I think that a diversity of age, generally speaking, is also going to mean a diversity of lived experience. It's going to mean, in the past 6 months, we've sort of unintentionally hired 3 parents. And those parents bring a different set of skills and a different set of expectations about work-life balance. At the same time, we've got these super, super young, Gen Z folks coming into the workplace who also have a different understanding about work-life balance than maybe I, as someone who's directly in the Gen Y, like the middle of the Gen Y gap, different than I have. And so seeing those two very different populations coming into our office, kind of ending at the same place where they want a really sincere work-life balance, but for totally different reasons, has been really insightful for me and really helpful for me as a manager.
That's good to hear. And I know just when I thought of you as a panelist, there's so many young folks I see volunteering with SCUFUS, but then if you ever walk into the office, there really is such a diverse age range. Mm-hmm. It's really nice to see. And thank you for your note on currency, just because for businesses, sometimes we do get stuck in the mindset of dollars, but currency can mean so many different things.
Absolutely. Yeah. And for us, we traffic in ideas. Like, policy often comes from, I'll leave the politics out of this, but policy, getting bills passed in the legislature, a lot of the time those are filtering up from our interactions with constituents. And so if our staff has a more diverse understanding of how to live in the world, how to relate to people in the world, we develop more policy ideas that then become state law. And so I think having that diversity makes us a more representative office for our constituency, but it also just makes us more productive.
Thank you. I love that. And James, do you think age plays into experience as somebody that you kind of entered this field a little bit later than others? And what are some of the benefits of having employees from different generations?
Sorry about that. I definitely think that age has something to do with experience because, in our particular business, kitchen design, there's certain aspects that you just have to experience and to put it into perspective, like when I say cooking, and cooking sounds very simplistic, but if we have somebody who's a Generation Z, and we do have an employee here who's 21, but it's, if you haven't cooked, you haven't experienced it, you haven't worked your way around a kitchen, it's not necessarily that it's a good or bad experience. It's just, hey, you start to understand what works for you, what doesn't work for you. So in respect of that, experience does matter. And the same thing with like myself, I'm at the point right now, I'm Gen X, so to speak. I shouldn't say so to speak, I definitely am. But my eyesight is starting to diminish, which is typical among people my age. So, this is something that I myself, I didn't really look at. I looked at it from a functional standpoint and trying to learn more, as I grew up in the industry. But, it's something that until you actually walk down that road or you start seeing a parent whose health is deteriorating, do you really take into consideration how convenient is it for these super tall cabinets or cabinets with no rollouts in it? And, I'm speaking some kitchen lingo here, but the point is, it's just how you live your life. And I think this experience does, definitely does, uh, uh, experience does help with that design factor. And I'm sorry, can you repeat the second part of that question there, Holly?
The benefits of having employees from different generations.
All right, so the benefits that we're seeing right here is pretty much I've kind of touched on is the fact that everybody's from a different generation. So when I say everybody's from a different generation, we don't have anybody in the silent generation. We had a baby boomer who recently retired. I'm Gen X. We have another employee who's a Gen X. We have Gen Y, millennials, and then a Gen Z. And I'm reading off your screen right here. But the benefit to having the different perspectives is really how do we handle things? And for some people, it's just roll up their sleeves and get it done, like myself. For others, to touch on Emma's point, it's that work-life balance. So maybe instead of putting in a 12-hour day, it's let's do an 8-hour day and really be super focused when you're here rather than just trudging along. And I learned, even though I'm the boss and I employ people, I learn so much from all my employees. And it varies from how they communicate. I can tell you the first time that I was invited to a meeting and it was Jim X somebody else, and one of my employees had put that on there. I'm like, what the heck is X? So it's like even simple uh, uh, linguistics like that I'm not used to. And in the also in it, it's also made me more conscious of how I communicate with people. And when I say that, the Generation Y and Generation Z is much more cognizant of people of different varying backgrounds and everything like that. And because of that, now I'm more conscious of how I address people. I haven't gotten in the habit of putting he, him as my pronouns behind my screen, but I notice a lot of people on the screen have. And in that same token, I believe that I have my screen minimized, but I believe a lot of those people are actually younger than I am that have identified themselves, which is perfectly fine. I don't have I don't, there's no issue with it. It's just how we were brought up, how we've learned. So, big picture, we have clients who come in of all age groups for kitchens. It could be somebody who did very well for himself. He moved up to the country. He's 26 years old. He just bought his first house and is remodeling. That's fine. We have people in between that are remodeling. They bought a second house, third house. Maybe they've lived in the house this time. And we have silent generation. We have clients that, we're making the kitchen accessible for them. And being able to speak and communicate across those generations and connect with all those generations actually helps us financially for our bottom line.
Very nice. Now, I'm going to move back to Earl. Earl, what are some unique challenges and benefits that you've faced as an employee due to your age?
We know the world that we live in, that we see, that, and quite often when we encounter different perspectives, it becomes an issue of right and wrong. And, you know, when we get into things like ageism, you know, not only against, as it relates to older individuals, but there's also youthism, where, you know, older individuals, you know, think that because of a lack of life experience, there's less to be offered by someone who's younger. I've learned that I'm still in school. And I'm committed to being, we always say, I'm a lifelong learner. I think it's important that we are willing to consider what we might yet not know about dealing with others. And if we truly are committed to being effective and productive as it relates to business, but also as it relates to us as human beings, that we are mindful that there's always more to learn. It's not a matter of right and wrong. Quite often, it's just a matter of different. So to put it simply, that's when I'm sort of looking to continue to grow and to continue to study, to read, to listen to talks, to have conversations with others, and to gain more information from their life experiences.
Very nice. Now, Emma, I know you mentioned earlier just some challenges and benefits for yourself as an employee, especially when you worked at the nonprofit with somebody that was a little bit older. Any other unique challenges or benefits that have either happened to you because of your age or that you've seen at Scopus's office or other work sites?
Yeah, I mean, on the benefits side, you know, the senator himself, and he's really set the tone from the top down that we need to value youth voices and pay attention to youth voices. And so I think we do a really good job. I like to think we do a really good job of elevating folks within. We do a lot of promoting within. I was promoted within. I was formerly the communications director before I was the chief of staff. We have folks who are on our senior staff who started off as interns. And so we do really, really value the experience that they bring, and sort of the worldview that they bring, and have very intentionally moved folks up the ranks in that way. So I'd say that that's a benefit of hiring young. You know, the other thing is we, as an elected office, we have to go out for a job interview every 2 years to the voters. You know, the senator does, but by effect, it's also his team who's going out for a job interview every 2 years. And that is really hard, but we work really, really intentionally to keep folks around and keep folks happy, so that when we do come up for that job interview, and hopefully we ace it every time, that we can continue to bring our team along with us and continue to enrich them within the office, to bring a lot more of that institutional knowledge and retain a lot of that institutional knowledge from cycle to cycle. I would say, you know, like going back to my nonprofit experience, I remember having, you know, a much older gentleman who was on the board come up to me when I had first gotten the job and said something to the effect of, "Man, this is a really big job for such a small girl like you. For such a young girl like you, this is a big job. Do you think you're up for it?" And that was not a great look. It didn't feel good, but I'll say, you know, not to his credit, but it really put some fire in my belly, to kind of prove myself in that role. But it's something I've thought about a lot. Every time I shift, you know, into a new role, I think, how can I not do that to the people that I'm kind of working with? How can I make them feel supported, and also give them some sort of guidance in the workplace as someone who's a little bit older without condescending to them? So I think watching out for that condescension is really, really important. Yeah.
I will just quickly share that I worked on a congressional campaign about 20 years ago, and I had that happen to me a lot. I was young at the time, but I also looked very young, and it never felt good. Or I was commonly asked whose girlfriend I was.
Or like, can you go get me some coffee? Which is
absolutely was asked so often for coffee. And I said, I actually have people under me that can help you with that.
Yeah.
But yeah, absolutely. And I notice that tends to happen, especially with people that, whether they are younger or they just appear younger. And to you, James, same question. What are some unique challenges and benefits that either you faced, especially somebody that I think you appear a little bit younger, you got into the field not right out of, high school or college? You're muted.
Okay, say, I'm showing my age here. I forget to unmute myself. So to both Emma's and Holly's point, you know, ages, I shouldn't say ageism, but condescending talk to somebody, it really it 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 creates a fire under your butt, and at the same time, it's also very demeaning. I had two experiences in my career where I was talked down to. Basically, it was along the lines of, "You don't know what you're doing, young man," or something of that nature. And I believe that everybody on this board and probably listening here is takes their position very seriously, and they're not here because they're getting paid. They're here because they have a true belief in why they're here. But the as far as that goes, uh, with all my employees, I know that I've had a lot of world experience, so to speak, and that world experience has been everything from you know simple projects all the way up to seven-figure kitchens, and working on these. Each one provides its own separate set of challenges and learning experiences, and all of that, myself personally, because of my love for the business, I don't take for granted. I'm the one who's, when you go to like an appliance seminar about talking about new appliances and such, I'm the one who's opening all the doors, looking at things, making sure how they work, clearances, all sorts of little things in the big picture. But from my perspective, having a multi-generational workforce is twofold. It's one, we help to uh, actually bridge that gap between generations walking through the door. And like one of my clients, and I shouldn't say one of my clients, one of my employees is multilingual, and is bilingual actually, but I said multilingual. But being bilingual, many clients who come in now gravitate towards her simply because it's a comfort factor. And you know it was a deliberate hire just to bring in more diversity into the workplace. But in the same token, I'm acting as a mentor to my younger employees, because I realize that there's going to be a day when I can't carry the torch, so to speak. And I want to instill in them, the values and the passion and everything that I have for this industry. And in that respect, I know what brought me to where I am. I only know a little bit about what brought them to where they are. And I'm trying to open the door to make them a better person, better employee, and ultimately more successful in their personal career, as well as for whoever they work with.
So kind of related to all that, I'm going to just ask you first, Jim. So what's your opinion on life/lived experience versus educational experience? Are they equally important? How do they interplay?
I'm going to say I'm going to say probably equal, or a little bit more. Life experience is a little bit better, so to speak. And I don't want to discount either one, because both of them bring a lot of benefits to the table. But like, for example, uh, you can read a book all day on how to paint a wall. And I'm not saying that my employees paint walls, but doing a task like painting a wall, and sometimes you just actually have to do it, not unlike riding a bike. And then there's other things that, hey, listen, if we do this, this, and this, and you're laying out the groundwork for you know, new CRM or you know, other operating procedures, I'll tell you what, there's we have employees that blow me away when it comes to typing speed and understanding and entering stuff into the computer, and that's fine, that's fine. But in the same token, it's like there's that part of it, but then the life part of it, and I think both of them both bring value to the table.
Very good. Let's go to Emma next. So life/lived experience versus educational.
It's a great question. I think there's a lot of value in both. I would say that I think, you know, again, going back to like what our currency is, we traffic in ideas. What I have found is that the folks who come to our team who are super, super passionate and curious are the ones who do the best on our team. And that kind of can't be taught in school. You know, passion and curiosity don't come out of books, but they are nurtured by books. So I think, you know, it's a little bit apples to oranges, but you know, our most recent, one of our most recent hires, I'll call her out. You know, we had a job opening for a role that in a lot of offices is considered sort of entry level. It's a scheduling position. It's about, you know, making sure the senator's calendar is lined up and that he has all the information he needs to get to the 1,000 appointments he has in a day. And a lot of offices will see that as kind of entry level. They'll pull somebody in who's fresh out of college, which is fine. But what we found during our hiring process was the person who really stood out to us was this individual who had actually been a paramedic for like 15 years. And she was really eager. She was clearly very mission oriented, very curious, very just excited to try something new. And she had this really specific skill set that was all about making sure that pieces of information are connected and that she stays calm under pressure.
Oh, she's got to be great under pressure. She's been a
Phenomenal.
paramedic.
Yeah, she's phenomenal. And so it's like, you know, we sometimes can think out of the box a little bit that way with these roles, understanding that we also have, you know, as a Senate office, we're part of a larger body of the legislature. And so if we need that really hyper technical knowledge, we also have kind of this like satellite up in Albany of knowledge and training and, you know, experience in the legislature who can support us. But a lot of the time we try to really look outside the box and think about the specific skill set and creativity that's needed in the roles that we have.
Yeah, I love that answer. I was very afraid last year. I was on a panel at my high school for career day, and one of the high school students asked me if college is required. And I want to preface this by saying that I went to a college prep school. They advertise that 100% of their students go on to college and earn at least a bachelor's. It is one of their key things that they love to advertise about. It's not in this area, I will say that. And I said, the degrees I have 3 degrees right now, are not relevant to my job at all. However, I think it's a good idea to go to college just because everything you get exposed to, not just necessarily books, but you're getting exposed to different ways of thinking, different groups of people. I mean, I went to an all-girls private school. So by going to a state college, it was huge compared to me, as well as just different individuals. So that can be very worth it. Although the president of the board did almost cut me off. So I had to be very careful with that. And last to Earl. So lived experience versus educational, especially if you're coming at this from such a unique perspective as an administrator.
Right. Before retiring, I decided to go back and get a second master's in counseling. I started clinical, but I completed my work in marriage and family therapy because of my heart for community work. And presently, I direct a faith-based counseling center, offices in Middletown and Newburgh. But while I was particularly studying marriage and family therapy, I'm there as a non-traditional student with traditional students. And I'm thinking, how can a 20-plus-year-old help a couple married for 30 years with their relationship? Now, obviously, as you mentioned, Holly, the base of knowledge that you receive through higher education is very important, and it's an incredible foundation for moving forward in your work professionally. But at the same time, experience again isn't necessarily related to number of years lived. I've been married now for 43 years, and I tell people I'm still in school. I'm happy to report that I'm passing, but at the same time, I have experience in that regard that I can bring to the clients facing certain types of challenges. On the other hand, I could have a younger colleague who, because of the household experience that they realized growing up, they have perspectives and insights and understanding much different than myself, but as valuable in certain situations. So again, I think that it is, you can't expect to know everything as it relates to being a professional because you have a degree. But at the same time, having just life experience without that base of knowledge, foundation of knowledge, limits your effectiveness and your ability to serve the mission and the purposes of the organization and the business that you're a part of.
Absolutely. And I just think it's interesting how much as an individual I've learned from employees that are sometimes younger, sometimes older. The last question I wanted to touch on was communication across generations. So I worked at a nonprofit before where I really learned that certain generations prefer in-person conversations, others phone or email, other people are texters. I had a boss who told me, and she was about my age, but she's maybe a little younger. She said, text me unless it's an emergency, in which case call 911. So call her was the last thing I should ever do. So of our panelists, who first wants to conquer talking about communication and communication styles across generations?
Well, I'm happy to go. So that's definitely one thing that I noticed with my workplace is I am an in-person communicator, and not just in-person communicator, but if there's an issue, you pick up the phone. Why do you pick up the phone? Because I can talk faster than I can type, than I can text. And, I've actually found that with my different employees because we have employees who text, we have employees who send emails, and I think it's especially our business, there's certain things that are okay for a written communication update, and there's other situations where a phone call is necessary or an in-person meeting. And I actually noticed that quite a bit from when we had COVID, and not that I had COVID, but during the pandemic, we made a concerted effort to do a lot of the meetings via Zoom and not to keep in-person interaction down. And I actually found that the sales process dealing with a client was very limited, even though like right now, I want to say I'm pretty animated. I mean, if you saw me from the waist down, you'd see I'm moving my hands around and everything like that. But the point is in our business, we're in the process of selling clients, and selling clients, we have to read everything from them. So it's for us, it's in-person communication is the best because we can see their body language. You can see them, look at something when I'm pointing to something in the showroom. You can see all that, and and basically see it and then feed off of it. My employees that are strictly email or text, there's, I'm going to say about 50% of that communication is lost. And that 50%, and in certain aspects, hey, that's great, the communication email, because everything's written, documented, no words are misconstrued. But the simple fact is, texting and emailing, words can get misconstrued. You have somebody who accidentally leaves a cap locks on, all of a sudden you think they're yelling at you. You have other people who are very much sticklers for proper grammar, and they get a text with, how are you? And it's, the letter R and U. It's like, what the heck? So I think that's, from an industry standpoint, I think the whole industry has to change a little bit, change and respect that, the same way that we don't talk to one another the same and the same I want to word this correctly. The way that when you speak to somebody, business situation, casual situation, or buddy friend situation, that's kind of the difference between the communication styles. And I think right now, from business standpoint, businesses are trying to interweave those and make them all work. And that's currently a challenge that we're going through, is how do we communicate with our clients across the generational spread, and a situation that's comfortable for them, but at the same time allows us to do our business effectively. I think that's about what I have on it. It's an issue that we're struggling with.
And Emma.
We use a variety of different channels, but I would say that I think especially coming out of COVID, I started with the senator's office sort of just after the worst of COVID. And so there was a period before I started where I think the entire team was working remotely, except for maybe one day a week. They sort of had staggered entrances in the office just to keep folks safe and healthy. Now that is not the case, we've made an effort to give folks still a little bit of flexibility at home. If they need to take a remote day, once a week, they can do that. But generally speaking, the work that we do, because it both moves so fast and involves, a lot of group brainstorming, we find that being in person together is really, really important. So every week we have a full team meeting where effectively the entire team is at the table. If you have to be on the road for a meeting or something, you can, call in. But in person is really where the best ideas come from. It's, how we keep everybody on the same page. That being said, because we're balancing a lot of complicated issues, whether that's, giving the team an update on some sort of big agency change or policy change, or, articulating what the senator's position is on something. We do a lot of writing. So I'm frequently sending, huge blocks of talking points out to our team in case they get calls from constituents that they need to field. But we're always in the office together. We find a lot of value in that in-person communication.
I think it's so important that you do things like handing out those talking points to everybody, because any member of your staff, I'm sure, could get approached at any time.
Exactly.
And then everybody's at least on the same page. And Earl, I know communication is one of your favorite things, so I wanted to save you for last if possible.
Well, I think the key to any communication is being committed to helping your listener understand your message. It's not communicating your message, helping them to understand it so that they can embrace it. That might mean being a bit more open to different forms of communication, and even those that might not be as comfortable to you. I'm more of an in-person. I'm a proud baby boomer. So I like to sit down face to face with folks. I want to be able to look into your eyes and maybe even if I'm in your office, read your office, wherever the environment, and your response to that environment. That's all part of the communication experience. But at the same time, I mean, I have a 30-year-old plus son, and we have different styles of communication. And I value our connection, so I'm willing to adjust my preferences, and I take that idea into my workplace and into my interactions within the community, working with others of different generations. Again, it's a matter of being open to differences, and I guess it's part of the idea of diversity, equity, accessibility, and inclusion. Taking those principles and using them as communicators. That's and that meaning both as those speaking, but then also those receiving the messages.
Thank you. Really appreciate that. Do we have any questions before we move on to final notes? All right, closing remarks. So with our panelists, whoever wants to kick it off with any final remarks that you want to share about multi-generational workplaces, any last nuggets of wisdom?
Well, I'll go first here. So again, thank you for having me on this panel. This is my first really panel where people are interested in what I have to say. So thank you for having me here. But no, in all seriousness, the multi-generational multi-generational workforces for us has been a benefit. And like I said, I know I have a lot of knowledge in this noggin of mine, and a lot of drive for the industry. And I appreciate being able to have a diverse workforce that I can actually infuse some of that knowledge on and also learn from, because it's important. We deal with clients across the age spectrum, the age and ability spectrum, and I think it's important for us to have employees that represent our clientele, and that is from the young to the old, from whatever your color, whatever your gender, it doesn't matter. It's I think it's important for us to have a workforce that represents the people who come through our door, because we are welcoming to all.
Thank you. And I agree absolutely. By being open to all, it's really just going to benefit your business. Emma, Earl, who wants to go next?
I'll jump in. Yeah, I'll just say, thank you again for this, and to our fellow panelists. Yeah, I think, it's, like I said, our industry is maybe a little unique, but I think that a diversity of age generally represents a diversity of lived experience. It's going to represent a diversity of viewpoint and sort of how you process the world around you. And, in my humble opinion, I think that makes for a better state Senate office, a better legislative office. We can more adequately represent the variety of constituent viewpoints that we represent. We can filter different ideas up to make change for our constituents, to make change in Albany. And so I really, really value that. The other thing I'll go back to, I sort of dropped in the little nugget that we hired 3 parents within the past 6 months. And I really, really want to give a shout out to hiring parents. They just bring a very different skill set and a different worldview. I'm not a parent. I look forward to being one at some point, but I just hire parents. More people should do that, because they just have a different sensibility about how to get things done and how to balance work life as well.
I absolutely agree with that. Some of our employees where I work are parents, some aren't. I have definitely worked at places. I remember in retail, a manager said to me, I try not to hire parents. Of course, I can't say that, but they're always getting called to do something and they're always so busy, which my experience has been the exact opposite. They're some of the most responsible people. They are typically great with time management. Of course, just being a parent doesn't mean you're going to be amazing with time management. It's not like the baby's born and all of a sudden you gain these skills. But some of the ways that they handle conflict in different situations can be amazing. And last one to hear from is Earl.
Yeah, I just want to say, yes, hire parents. Don't forget the grandparents.
True, very true.
I
Grandparents.
think, yeah, I was going to say, I think about that movie with Robert De Niro where he played the assistant.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, that's my point. What I'll say is this, across generational lines, when people feel valued, they will want to work with you. They will want to do their best for, not just for you, but for the cause. Community clients will want you to provide services for them. They're going to want to do business with you. People will want to spend time with you. And that's what community is all about. So hopefully, as we continue to consider the value of diversity in various contexts, we will continue to grow as community, as well as individuals.
Thank you so much. I just want to thank again all of our panelists for this. I know the whole DEAI committee greatly appreciates this, as well as everybody's time today. And Earl, do you have any closing remarks?
Well, again, I want to thank our panelists. I want to thank those who took the time out of their busy day to join us. If this was a benefit in any way, would you just drop us a note? Let us know. Send it to the office. If you have any suggestions for future lunch and learns, please forward those to us as well. And I just pray that I'm thanking you even now as you go forth that you will continue to sort of help to bridge the generational gaps that we realize daily in our multi-generational workplaces and communities. Thank you.
I love that. And thank you so much. Tracy, do you have any final words? You're muted, sorry.
Sorry about that. Can you hear me now?
Beautiful. Thank you.
Okay, perfect. I just wanted to say thank you to all of you. Thank you to the panelists. Thank you, Holly and Earl, for such a great job that you do with this committee. Please come back. Our next one's going to be in October. And thank you for such a great topic. It was great today, very informative. And on behalf of the Chamber, for everyone that attended today, I just wanted to say thank you. And we'll see you for the next DEAI in October.
Thanks so much, everyone. Have a good rest of your week.
Have a wonderful day. Thank you.